The sun rose over Shravasti, casting its golden light upon the serene garden where the Buddha meditated. I approached him hesitantly, my mind burdened with unease and restlessness that would not abate. The world seemed louder than ever, its incessant distractions a relentless storm that invaded my thoughts. Buddha, I began, bowing deeply before him. My heart is weary, and my mind is entangled in the noise of the world. He opened his eyes, a deep stillness radiating from his presence, as though he had mastered the silence within. Speak, my friend, he said gently, his voice a tranquil stream amidst the chaos of my thoughts. What troubles you? Even here, I confessed, where the birds sing and the breeze carries the scent of jasmine. My mind is never still. He observed me for a moment, his gaze piercing yet compassionate, as though he saw beyond my words to the core of my being. You are not alone, he said, in your struggle against the noise that consumes the soul. Sit with me. I settled onto the soft grass, the earth cool beneath me, as the Buddha gestured to the world around us. Tell me, he said, what do you hear in the silence of this place? I closed my eyes, straining to perceive the quiet, but the tumult within me drowned out the stillness outside. I hear nothing, Master, I admitted, shame coloring my words, only the echoes of my restless thoughts, louder than any sound. He nodded, the faintest smile gracing his lips, as though my struggle was a familiar story to him. The mind, he said, is like a monkey, leaping from branch to branch, never content to rest. I felt the truth of his words, my thoughts darting like shadows through a dense forest, elusive and endless. How, I asked, my voice laden with desperation, can one still the monkey mind? How can peace be found within this cacophony? He lifted his hand, pointing to a tree swaying gently in the breeze, its leaves dancing in the sunlight. Observe the tree, he instructed, how it stands firm even as the wind rustles its branches. It does not resist. He thought he was battling external imperfection. A quiet murmur passed through the disciples as the meaning sank in. But how, Master? I asked, yearning for guidance, the path to tranquility obscured by my own confusion. He closed his eyes briefly, as though gathering the wisdom of countless lifetimes before imparting it to me. Begin with the breath, he said, for it is the bridge between the body and the mind, the anchor of awareness. I drew a deep breath, the air filling my lungs, its coolness a balm to the fire of my anxiety. Feel the breath, he instructed, how it enters and leaves, a rhythm unbroken and eternal. Let it guide your focus. I obeyed, my attention narrowing to the gentle rise and fall of my chest. The noise within me momentarily quieted. Thoughts will come, the Buddha said, his voice steady, as clouds drift across the sky. Do not chase them, but let them be. I watched my thoughts as though from a distance, their clamoring less urgent, their grip on me loosening with each passing moment. The mind is not the master, he said, but the servant of awareness. When cultivated with patience, time seemed to dissolve as I sat there, the sun climbing higher, its warmth a reminder of the world's constancy. A disciple seated near Ananda spoke next, his voice hesitant. Master, how can we calm the ripples of fear and doubt that often cloud our hearts? Buddha turned to him, his gaze steady yet inviting. To change the world, change within. His words resonated deeply, their simplicity a profound truth that seemed to echo through the very fabric of existence. But does the world not offer peace as well? I asked, seeking to understand the balance he described. It does, he affirmed, but only to those who seek it, who turn their gaze inward and cultivate the garden of the soul. I pondered his words, the image of a garden blooming within me, its flowers nurtured by stillness and attention. How does one begin this cultivation, Master? I asked, eager to tend to the soil of my own spirit. With discipline, he replied. And with love, for the self and for all beings. Begin small. With a single breath, I felt the weight of his guidance. Not as a burden, but as a gift, a map to a destination long sought. Master, I said, will the noise ever truly cease? Or must one learn to live with it? The noise, he said, is like the waves of the ocean, eternal and unceasing. But you are the shore. Unmoved, I envisioned myself as the shore. The waves crashing against me yet unable to erode the core of my being. Thank you, Master, I said, bowing deeply, my heart lighter than it had been in many moons. The Buddha smiled. His presence a testament to the peace he described, a beacon for those lost in the storm. As I rose to leave, his final words lingered in the air like a benediction, a promise of what lay ahead. Remember, he said, peace is not found, but made, in each breath, each moment, each choice to let go. A disciple near the edge of the group asked cautiously, what if the distortion persists, and we cannot see the truth within ourselves? Buddha addressed him directly, his tone gentle. Distortion lingers only when we resist seeing ourselves with compassion and without attachment. He said, and so, the journey began, not toward a distant horizon, but inward, to the stillness that had always been there. Another day, another dawn bathed the city of Shravasti in golden light, where the Buddha sat amidst his disciples. The garden surrounding them whispered with life, its trees swaying gently, casting dappled shadows across the gathering. I arrived at the garden, carrying an object I thought might intrigue the Buddha and his followers. The object was a polished bronze mirror, its surface reflecting the world with remarkable clarity, every detail captured in its glow. The disciples gathered around as I displayed the mirror, their curiosity evident in their animated whispers and wide eyes. Buddha, I said, bowing deeply, this mirror reveals the world as it is, capturing its beauty and imperfections. The Buddha accepted the mirror, gazing at it briefly before placing it beside him, his expression serene as always. In the distance, the sound of the river carried softly to their ears, as if echoing the flow of thoughts calmed by wisdom. Buddha stood, his hands coming together in a gesture of compassion, signaling the end of the teaching for now. What do you see in this mirror? He asked. I hesitated, glancing at the gleaming surface, unsure of how to answer his simple yet profound inquiry. I see the world, Master, I replied tentatively. Its colors, shapes, and faces reflected back to me. Indeed, the Buddha said, his voice calm, yet carrying the weight of countless lessons. Buddha remained under the Bodhi tree, his presence a reminder of the wisdom that sought to guide, not command. The story of Sunanda lingered in their thoughts, an episode illuminating their struggles. The Buddha nodded, his approval subtle but reassuring, as though my admission opened a door to greater understanding. The tools we hold, he said, are like this mirror, showing us fragments but concealing the wholeness beneath. The disciples listened intently, their expressions mirroring my own, a mixture of curiosity and longing for clarity. But Master, one disciple interjected, are not the reflections valuable? Even if incomplete, they guide us, reveal much of what surrounds us. Buddha sat poised under the Bodhi tree, his presence grounding them as firmly as roots anchor the earth. Maha Kassapa addressed the Buddha, his voice steady but inquisitive. They cannot reveal the eternal truth. The disciple nodded, understanding beginning to dawn. As the Buddha continued, his gaze encompassing the gathering, the mind, entranced by fragments, forgets to seek deeper, where truth resides, beyond the surface of illusions. His words resonated deeply, their simplicity profound, guiding us toward a truth both elusive and transformative. But Master, I asked, emboldened by his teachings, how can we move beyond the surface? To see the wholeness that lies beneath? He turned his gaze to me. His eyes filled with the wisdom of lifetimes. Their depth impossible to fathom. Begin, he said, by quieting the mind, by letting go of attachment to fleeting reflections and illusions. His advice was simple, yet its implications vast. The journey inward requiring courage and discipline to navigate. The mind, he said, as a vessel, filled with fragments until emptied, allowing the eternal truth to enter. The disciples exchanged glances, their expressions revealing both determination and trepidation. The path described both inviting and daunting. Observing the mirror once more, the Buddha gestured for us to reflect upon its meaning, its lessons, and its limitations. The mirror, he said, offers no answers, only images. The answers lie within, in the silence beyond thought. An elder watched her, seated by the riverbank. Buddha said. The elder, observing her burden, spoke kindly. Child, why do you carry this stone wherever you go? Buddha's voice carried the elder's warmth, its compassionate tone bringing life to the interaction. The disciples followed his example, their breaths steady, the practice binding us together in shared purpose and revelation. Time seemed to dissolve, the boundaries between self and world blurred. A glimpse of unity glimpsed. Opening my eyes, I felt the weight of the mirror as if for the first time. Its allure diminished in light of truth. Master, I said, bowing deeply, the mirror feels heavier now, its reflection less significant compared to what lies within. The Buddha smiled, his approval subtle yet profound. The recognition of a milestone reached. The world, he said, addressing us all, is filled with mirrors, distractions that reflect only fragments, never wholeness. Seek beyond them. His words settled upon us, their resonance carrying a promise, a map to liberation from the illusions that bind us. Thank you, Master, I said, echoing the gratitude reflected in the expressions of the disciples surrounding him. The Buddha rose. The bronze mirror left behind, now only a symbol, its role fulfilled in the lesson imparted. Remember, he said, his voice a beacon amidst the noise of existence. Truth is not seen, but known. In silence, he walked into the garden, his steps light, the teachings left behind to ripple through our souls. I left the gathering, the world outside seeming both unchanged and transformed. The mirror's gleam less captivating. The Buddha's words echoed within me, not as commands but as whispers, guiding each breath, each thought, each choice. Another day began, but its meaning transcended the rhythm of time. The journey inward unfolding anew. Another day, another traveler sought the Buddha's wisdom. A prince named Siddhartha, adorned in silks and radiating regal authority. His carriage, flanked by attendants, arrived at the garden where the Buddha sat beneath a Bodhi tree. The prince disembarked, his every movement echoing privilege. Yet his eyes betrayed an unspoken torment. Buddha, Siddhartha began, bowing reluctantly, as if shackled by pride and desperation. My wealth and power have become a prison. The Buddha regarded him with calm, a deep stillness in his gaze that seemed to reflect eternity. Speak your burden, the Buddha invited, his voice gentle yet resonant, as if the very earth paused to listen. I possess all a man could desire, the prince continued, his voice faltering, yet I feel trapped, unable to find peace. The Buddha observed him without judgment, allowing silence to fill the space between words, a silence that carried weight. Siddhartha, the Buddha said, a golden cage is still a cage, binding as surely as one of iron. Disciples nodded slowly, their hearts aligning with Buddha's teachings like stars following celestial patterns. A disciple, seated near Ananda, voiced his thoughts with cautious conviction. Siddhartha hesitated before lowering himself onto the earth, the action shedding a fragment of his princely aura. Freedom, the Buddha began, is not given by the world but discovered within. Lessons remain, unchained by the sorrow of attachment. Each burden teaches before flowing away like the river's ceaseless current, Buddha explained. Sila's stone defined her struggle, yet releasing it marked her growth. The stone no longer owned her story. Responsibilities, he said, are not chains but weights. How you carry them determines whether they burden or strengthen you. Siddhartha's gaze lowered, his silks pooling around him like the trappings of his privilege. Suddenly heavier than before. Master, he whispered, how does one learn to carry such weights without succumbing to them? The Buddha reached for a stone, holding it aloft, its rough surface glinting faintly in the sunlight. Hold this stone, the Buddha instructed, passing it to the prince, who accepted it hesitantly, confusion clouding his features. Does the stone weigh you down now? The Buddha asked, his tone inviting reflection, his gaze unyielding. No, the prince replied. It is light, easy to carry for now. Now imagine carrying it all day. All week, all year, the Buddha said, his words unfolding like waves upon the shore. Would its weight remain the same? Siddhartha's eyes widened with understanding, the stone in his hand suddenly feeling heavier. Its metaphor clear. No, Master, he admitted, its burden would grow unbearable. Such are the weights of life, the Buddha said, his voice a beacon amidst the fog of the prince's thoughts. Release them regularly, even for a moment, and their burden will not crush you. The prince set the stone down, the act symbolic, its lesson sinking deeply into his heart. But Master, Siddhartha asked, how does one release a weight when its grip feels inescapable, its demands unrelenting? The Buddha closed his eyes briefly, as though drawing wisdom from the vast reservoir of his enlightenment. Begin, he said, by finding moments of stillness, where the noise of the world cannot reach you. The prince listened intently, the urgency in his heart quieted by the calm in the Buddha's voice. In those moments, the Buddha continued, turn inward, observe your breath, and let go of the stories you tell yourself. Siddhartha inhaled deeply, as though practicing the very teaching, his posture relaxing slightly, his silks less constricting. But what of duty? The prince asked, still seeking clarity, the balance between inner freedom and external demands elusive. Duty, the Buddha replied, is a thread in the fabric of life, not the entire cloth. Weave it with care. Siddhartha nodded slowly, the metaphor resonating, its simplicity belying the profound challenge it posed. And wealth? Siddhartha asked, his voice tinged with shame, the question heavy with his conflicted relationship to material abundance. Wealth, the Buddha said, is like water. It can nourish when it flows or stagnate when hoarded. Let it serve, not enslave. The prince's gaze softened, a hint of understanding dawning, the chains of his privilege loosening incrementally. The Buddha gestured to the Bodhi tree, its branches reaching skyward, its roots anchoring it deeply into the earth. Be like the tree, he said, grounded in your essence, yet reaching for the infinite. Balance both worlds. Siddhartha stared at the tree, its silent wisdom resonating with the teachings unfolding in the garden's sacred space. Master, he said finally, his voice steadier, I will seek this balance, though the path feels long and uncertain. The Buddha smiled gently, his approval subtle, his faith in the prince's journey evident in his serene demeanor. The path, he said, is not measured by distance but by presence. Each step taken mindfully is freedom itself. The prince rose, bowing deeply, the weight of his silks and jewels lighter, his heart a fraction freer than before. Thank you, Master, he said, his gratitude sincere, his eyes alight with the first glimmers of hope in many moons. The Buddha nodded, his role as teacher fulfilled, his presence a constant reminder of the peace he embodied. As the prince departed, the garden returned to stillness. the lessons imparted lingering like the scent of jasmine in the air. The seed questioned its worth, doubting whether it could become more than its present form. It worried it would fail, Buddha said. The day waned, the sun casting long shadows, its light golden and warm, as though blessing the wisdom shared. The Buddha remained seated, his presence a beacon, guiding all who sought him toward the light of understanding. Another day ended, but its teachings remained timeless, a journey inward that never truly concluded. Thank you for watching. Buddha's teachings are always with you. Subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next video.